This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to The Twilight Show with me, Graham Stanley, based in Mexico City. Today's guest, the first of 2024, is Patricia Laura Arbona, a teacher trainer based in Argentina.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Happy New Year, everybody. My guest today, as I said in the introduction, is Patricia Laura Arbona, who is a teacher based in Argentina and who specializes in segmental and supra-segmental phonology and applied drama. She is a teacher, trainer, and international lecturer, and she's the founder and head of Ludodrama, a group of teachers whose main concern is to enhance the art of teaching, mainly, I believe, through drama, as the name suggests. I'm really looking forward to talking to Patricia, and I hope she'll be here very soon. In the meanwhile, here's a message from our sponsors.
Bet UK is just 2 weeks away. Are you ready to join 30,000 attendees, 600 plus exhibitors on 7 content stages from 120 countries, and see Louis Theroux, Dame Darcy Bustle, Jason Arde, Laurel Kana, Baroness Luella Benjamin, Dan Fitzpatrick, Mr. PICT, and so much more? I might need to bring my trainers. The best part? Educators go free. Get your ticket now at uk.betshow.com/visitor-registration.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
Introducing Eton X from Eton College, a diverse range of quality online courses enabling young people to aspire and excel. Designed for self-study, these web-based courses empower your students with essential leadership, communication, and academic skills for success at school and beyond. Our Study Skills course sharpens their learning abilities, while the AI Fundamentals course equips them with vital digital know-how in a fast-changing world. Other popular courses include verbal communication, critical thinking, writing skills, resilience, creative problem solving, and many more. Offer the Eton X curriculum in your school for free. Visit etonx.com to find out more.
Hello, everybody, and you're back with me, Graham Stanley, based in Mexico City, on the Twilight Show. It's Saturday, the 6th of January, 2024, and I'm still waiting for my guest, Patricia Laura Arbona, who I'm expecting to, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. I'm expecting her to be along very shortly. We met earlier today in Podbean, and so I know that technically things are fine. So I'm hoping that Patricia will be with us very soon. Now, Patricia, as I said before, is a teacher, educator, and lecturer, and she's very interested in something called Ludodrama. So she's interested in using drama to help students with language learning, I believe. And I'm looking forward to talking to her about that. Innovative education is what it's all about, and that's the topic of our show today, which will be educational change through innovation and other things. And so I'm hoping that that she'll be with us very soon. Let me just check with her. Sending her a message now to see if she can join. And hopefully Patricia will be with us. As I said, I was able to speak to Patricia earlier today. And there seems to be something wrong with the link. I'm surprised, especially as usually when she says she's in. Patricia, I can't see you. I'm also wondering, Patricia, if you can hear me, whether you said you were going to join with your computer, but when we did the tech check, you joined with your iPad. Because that was definitely working, and I don't seem to see you at all. I don't know if you can hear me, Patricia, but you're definitely not there. Yeah, so Patricia's going to go back to using her iPad, which we know definitely worked before. So I'm expecting her to be along very shortly. In the meantime, how are you all? If there's anybody out there listening, I hope you had a very good break. I hope you're able to have a break and ready to face 2024 with a vengeance, with lots of new projects and lots of exciting things happening, I hope, in the realm of education. Let's hope that 2024 is a more peaceful year than 2023, although things don't look very promising on that front. But we can always hope and wish for things. Let's hope that there aren't any more conflicts, and that the conflicts that exist are soon resolved. I would also like to ask any of you out there listening either live or to the recording whether you would like to be a guest on my show. I'm always looking for guests, and Patricia is someone who accepted a call for being a guest in December. Patricia, I believe you're here now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
Oh, fine. Sorry for this technical problem. I'm so anxious I couldn't get to you, but now we are together.
It's all right. That's the main thing.
All right. Yes.
So Patricia, I've just excuse me. I gave a short introduction about you, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your current situation. You're a teacher educator, and lecturer who is based in Argentina.
Yeah. You're right. Well, yes, I specialize in segmental and suprasegmental phonology, and I have been teaching this for ages. And I started some years ago at the teacher training college. It was amazing because I started using the traditional method, but gradually I realized that my students needed something different. So as the students should develop communication skills, I started thinking about drama. And it was just a strategy. I didn't need to ask for permission to the principal. And I started small, and gradually my students were the ones who told me that it was really amazing how they could be able to use um, the the language they know in real life situations through different drama activities, for example, a simulation or a role play. And in this way, they could use all the elements of pronunciation we had learned during the year.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, really, because I always think that testing is not good for our students. I do not
Mm.
like testing in the way it is still done today, because it is the traditional way of testing. There are other more important ways, and this is one of the most important issues we need to deal in education: how to change evaluation. Well, through this type of activities, students were able to show that they have learned or what needed extra reinforcement. It was great for
Great.
them. It was great for me.
Can I ask you, Patricia, all of your students, I believe they are young adults, is that right?
Yeah, right.
Right. And they're studying at, is it university?
Here in Argentina, students study English to become teachers at colleges.
Oh, okay. So they're training to be teachers. Those are the students you're teaching mainly. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. There
Okay.
are universities. There are universities in which students study to become teachers. Yes, this is
Great.
something that has been established for some years.
Wonderful. And before I get on to the details of that and our main subject, which is educational change, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you became a teacher, Patricia. What was it that attracted you to teaching and to working in education?
Well, when I was young, I always played teacher. I always loved being a teacher. My toys were my students, I remember. And well, when I grew up, I decided to become a teacher, and I started studying. And after I finish, I go on studying postgraduate studies.
Okay.
And my main aim was to specialize on sounds, because I think that pronunciation is the Cinderella skill in language learning, like listening. And through my specialization, and now um, the workshops I'm delivering everywhere, I'm showing the teachers how important it is to teach pronunciation and to consider speaking and listening together. Today, listening is set aside. And one important fact is that English today has become an international language. This means that we cannot go on teaching English with a traditional model. We don't today. We don't need accuracy. We need intelligibility. So
Mhm.
with this saying that it was really before becoming an innovative teacher, I started thinking that something different was needed. I didn't want to go teaching traditionally because I was taught to be traditional at college, and I wanted to step outside the comfort zone. So when I started working with young students, and I started trying different ways of approaching teaching, I realized, or I understood, what my students really needed. That's
Right.
why today I feel so satisfied, because I know that innovating is very important. But there are many teachers around the world that still consider the traditional model important, and it is very difficult to get rid of. I'm working on this, and I realize that although many teachers know that the traditional model is outdated and it is not helping students to become effective learners, it is still present. The problem is that we have a system that is still traditional in many countries. But
Mm.
although we are part of a system, we can introduce changes. Why not?
Of course. And so your approaches were developed as a reaction against the kind of teaching that um, you experienced both when you were becoming a teacher, but also at school. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Because you know that we have been having this traditional model for ages, and it is anachronic, it is old fashioned. But you know that in general, governments are not usually interested in education. And I think that we educators are responsible for introducing transformation, change, renovation, revamping, etc. But we are never consulted. So
Yes.
we can start changing um, uh, in the classroom. I always say that the stage of change is the classroom, and we are agents of change, and we have a very important mission in society. We are not just teachers, we are educators, social
Yeah.
educators.
And do you think a lot has changed in your context in Argentina during the, um, since when you started becoming a teacher? Have you seen lots of change? And also related to that, do teachers have a lot of flexibility when it comes to what they teach in schools?
Well, here, education is not normally taken into account by different governments. We have been having different governments. But the thing is that we at school can start introducing changes. For example, that of course that education is not the same that the one we used to have when I started studying at college. Of course, there has been evolution, but we are in the 21st century, and still we need a lot of innovation, renovation, transformation, and sometimes it is very difficult to introduce changes because um, um, headmasters or headmistresses at different institutions are traditional. So for me, it is very difficult to introduce or to invite their staff to listen to me because although they want, if the principal says no, not here, well, I'm not allowed, and it is a pity because I think that today we need a change of attitude. We cannot go on using something that we know that is not helping students at all.
So, do you think, Patricia, that the resistance to change is mainly lies with the heads, or is it a combination of the government or the teachers who are reluctant to change? Where is it? Is it across the board that change is something that in education is hard to implement, or is it one particular group of people, like you said, the headmasters, the headmistresses, the
No, no,
principals?
I think that there are two important factors: the government, that there is no help, and also teachers. Teachers, because when you
Right.
decide to change, you step outside the comfort zone. But when you remain inside, everything is easier because everything is there is no change. You always do the same. Your classes are predictable, and you know that students have been complaining for ages because they are always saying that they do not like the way they are learning. And in spite of that, um, they are not listened. Many teachers do not listen to them. But today, as we are in a period of transformation, students have the opportunity to see traditional teachers and innovative teachers. So in this way, they can see the difference. For example, my students at college always tell me, of course, what do you prefer? To teach like a traditional teacher when you become a professional, or do you prefer to be an innovative? Of course, they say innovative teachers. They want to know changes, they want to know new strategies because they are young and they are eager to learn new possibilities in teaching and learning. And I think that we are responsible for that too.
Yeah. And Patricia, you mentioned this a little bit that you think teachers are not that open to changing how they teach because it's easier to teach along traditional methods a lot, to keep on doing the same things you've done and learned how to do when you were a teacher. So, what is the key, do you think, to change, to encouraging teachers to change, to showing them that it isn't as hard as they may think, that it is easy to adopt changes and new innovative practices? What's the key to actually showing teachers that is possible?
I think that the main problem that we are having at the moment that teachers are teaching to the test because you know that the students even have mock tests. So
Right.
these type of examinations are not real. So the students just get a grade or a mark, and that's the end of story. And what we need in the classroom is to teach to communicate. We need to help our students, in the case of English, of course. We need to teach them how to communicate effectively using the English language, how to become effective users of English. They do not want to have tests one after the other. And besides, the way they are taught, when teachers follow the traditional model, I always say that the bulimia syndrome takes place. This means that the teacher explains, students study, and then they regurgitate content. And then that
Right.
information is forgotten after a few days. Why? Because I always say content that is not applied is content that is not learned. An important part of learning is missing today, and it is the utility of what they are learning. Sometimes students say, why can I use this? Why are we learning this? Or what is the use of learning this? They are curious about it. And probably they get an explanation, but that is not enough. Why? Because today what is important is to learn by doing, hands-on learning. The students should be directly involved in the process of learning. Today students are very dependent on teachers. And one of our main aims is to help them become independent. When they become independent, they are agents of change. They can reflect on their own changing, on their own learning. And in many cases, when you speak about metacognition is something that is a very valuable tool in the classroom, and it's not as common as it should be. Because when we give the students voice, okay, let's talk about your way you are learning. What are your weaknesses and what are your strengths? Tell me about them, please. And there I get a lot of information to improve my own teaching, and they also get information to improve their own learning. I think that this is the way of teaching and learning nowadays. It's not
Right.
a question of repeating like a parrot.
Yeah. And so do you think that part of the problem is that teachers feel like they are themselves being tested by the results that their students get
Yeah.
in tests, and
Oh, God.
that provides a kind of negative loop, if you like, so they feel that they have to, above everything else, make sure that as
Yeah.
many students as possible pass the tests that they set. So that's the root of the problem.
Yes, you are a good teacher when all students pass examinations. This is what happens in the traditional model. There is no reflection. I think that we need to reflect. Metacognitive reflection is very important with colleagues, because when we reflect, we can learn from one another. We can share practices. And if we're having a problem in the classroom, we can share it with our colleagues and find a solution together. The problem is also that we are not used to working together. Each teacher is normally in her room and in the classroom, and they have few opportunities to meet and discuss together. And I think that this should become more frequent. We don't have time. We can do it on Saturday, but you know that on Saturday I'm busy. These are what we normally say, but meeting and discussing the problems or the achievements we have in our classrooms may help us a lot.
Yes, and I think you've mentioned a key factor here as well that is important to take into account, and probably a big reason why systems don't change, teachers don't change, is the lack of time, isn't it? Because teachers um, are usually very, very busy, and I know in Argentina many teachers have several jobs that they have to do, and they don't really have a lot of time to be able to explore new practices, perhaps. Would that
Yes,
be fair to say?
yes, yeah, of course. Yes, of course. We are having an important economic crisis at the moment, and but anyway, teachers have different jobs, and probably there is no time and to for professional development or to become more updated. But the thing is that the system is responsible for this, because as you belong to this system and the government indicates that this is the way you should you should work in the classroom. Well,
Yes.
we do not have the opportunity to say, okay, let's stop and rewind, let's start again. We hope that in the future we will have other possibilities as regards education. Some years ago here in Argentina, the government decided to implement project-based learning. And I was an active member of that. It was in 2018. And by the end of 2019, after 2 years, we realized that the results were great. The students felt more comfortable because they could work together, and they learned more comfortably because they could share what they were learning with their peers. And the way they were evaluated was different. But then the government changed, and this disappeared. So today, we need to concentrate on active methodologies. This is the key today in education. Active methodologies. Let the students do, let the students be. You become a facilitator, and in this way, you can see their progress. You are a monitor at the moment. You are no longer an instructor as a teacher. And
Of course.
we should give them the opportunity to become the main actor in the classroom. They should be active.
So moving on to that, Patricia, I know you mentioned it before, but we also talked earlier that you're a great believer in active learning and in particular drama.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about this Ludodrama, the group that you lead, I believe, and how you got involved with that.
Well, yes. I created this group about 14 years ago because with my students at college, there was a special section in my classes devoted to drama. So they prepare short scenes, and well, then we discussed. We used to have metacognitive reflection, and after that, other institutes got interested in the plays that the students were creating year after year. So I decided to create this group. It is a group of innovative teachers whose main aim is to improve quality education. And well, today I go around the world after the pandemic. People from Asia discovered me because they didn't know anything about drama, and they wanted to know what it's about. And they thought that it was, for example, a short play at the end, let's say, not all of them, but in general, they wanted to know how a drama could be implemented in the classroom. Well, I always say that drama is full of magic because when I started studying drama, I became another person. Why? Because it gave me flexibility, energy, and a different perspective in teaching. Why? Because I always say that drama is the tool because it has a holistic approach. It is the only tool that may help students become effective users of English or any language, or effective communicators in any situation, because most of the activities involve conversations, role plays, exchanges. The students are using the language permanently. And something else that is very important, drama also includes non-verbal language.
Of course.
This non-verbal language is usually ignored. It's not even taught in the mother tongue. And it is very important, especially when you are learning a foreign language, because it provides a lot of information. For example, in the case, I always say that pronunciation, as I said before, includes both speaking and listening. And when we are using drama, listening and speaking go together. Why? Because students become active listeners. This means that they are not only listening to the words expressed by the interlocutor, they also pay attention to what is not said. I say the unsaid, the tone of voice and intonation. This means that students learn to listen with their ears and also with their eyes. Experts say that, in general, people are not good listeners because we listened with intent to reply, not to understand. So, with drama, as listening is an important component because it is part of communication and it cannot be separated from speaking, they learn that. So,
And how,
imagine, yeah, sorry.
sorry, Patricia, for
Yeah.
interrupting, but how do you teach active listening with students? Is that something you can teach, or how would you approach it with combining
Well,
active listening with drama?
they discover many things when we use drama, because what is listening? I may ask, what is listening? Listening to words, they say normally, or understanding words. But do you listen or do you see only words? And they start thinking, because I love learning by discovery. I try to guide them to give me the answers. I never give them full answers. I want them to think. And they
Yeah.
discover that when, for example, imagine I say, you ask me a question, and I don't add a word. I say, pardon? But that silence is meaningful. So
Right.
pay attention to these details. When we are having a conversation, there are many elements that are usually ignored, or probably they are so common that they are ignored. But it is a mistake because when we are having a face-to-face conversation, we have eye contact. Eye contact is essential. I cannot speak to you if I'm checking my phone, for example, my messages.
Of course.
Of course, that it would be impolite. But anyway, they discover how to listen actively, how to direct their attention to the words. Something very important that is not taught either, because listening is not part of teaching English, is that a big distinction between content and structured words. This information should be given when students start learning the language, and it's usually not given, or it is given at a theoretical level, but it is not applied. So I always tell them, when we are speaking, not all the words are important. So concentrate on those which are providing the meaning that you need to understand what is being said. And okay, well, content words are those which are meaningful. And how can you discover them? They are highlighted. For example, I show them the importance of intonation when I change the meaning while I produce the same utterance. For example, I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. So by uttering the same idea, I'm changing the meaning using that. So when these students start practicing this type of intonation and tone of voice, for example, I may tell them, okay, tell me that it is your birthday, but you are afraid, full of fear. Come on, say it. Well, at the beginning, it's a bit difficult for them because it's my birthday today. Let's have a party. Well, you are afraid. You are terrified because it is your birthday. Come on, what would you say it? And they have fun and they learn this naturally. That's why I love the drama, really.
That's really interesting. I like that idea. It makes them think as well. Giving them that task to do would give them would would ask them to try to understand what it would be like and why someone might be afraid if it was their birthday,
Yeah.
etc. So I think that is good for stimulate the imagination as well. And so, are a lot of the drama activities that you suggest teachers use or that you use, Patricia, are they kind of exercises like this, or do you actually also look at using some kind of story level drama, like a little mini plays or whatever? Is that something that is useful, do you think, to
Yes, of
help
course. Yes, it
students?
helps a lot. Yes, yes, yes. Well, for example, depending on the level, they can create. With my college students, when I studied with drama, I guided them because it was important for me to let them create their own stories. And they prepared their script. I corrected them, and then they performed them. And it was great. They got very engaged. There was a lot of intrinsic motivation because it was really interesting to see how engaged they were when preparing the different scenes, costumes, etc. So, and this is important because motivation is the engine for learning. If you are not motivating, you will never learn.
Yes.
So when you
It's a
give
good
them,
point.
when you give them activities or strategies in which they are directly involved and they can see that they are learning, they enjoy what they are doing. And this is great because we are always by their side, and they know that we are supportive, that we are approachable, that mistakes are welcome, that the classroom becomes a laboratory where there is a lot of trial and error. They experiment with the language. So mistakes are not punishment. They do not mean punishment. We shouldn't interrupt students when they are, for example, describing something or telling a story, because sometimes we cannot help this and we interrupt. For example, yesterday I go to the park. Oh, sorry, no, it's not go. It is went. Remember that we learned this. Okay, repeat. Go, went, and then you say, okay, go on. Oh, the student, all the idea the student had thought before vanished. So we also need to know how to correct effectively. I know that it is difficult to wait till the student finishes, but I think that it is important to see to change our behavior, because when they realize that they can commit mistake, no problem. You were able to say something, although it was not correct. For example, do you want anything else? No, I don't want nothing. Okay, so if I say I don't want nothing, do you understand? Yes, you understand. But you immediately detect that there is a grammar mistake. In English, we say we don't want anything, right? Well, the correction is afterwards. Or we may suggest this in different ways. But the idea is to let them speak, even if they commit mistakes, because mistakes come and go. And they open to door to knowledge, to understanding. So let them commit mistakes. No problem. They are welcome.
Yeah, I think that's important, isn't it? I think one of the best things and one of the things that a teacher needs to do early on is to provide an environment within the classroom where students are comfortable and they feel secure enough to make mistakes. Because, as you say, without making mistakes, then if students are afraid to make mistakes, then they won't actually experiment enough to learn sufficient language, will they?
Of course. They need to experiment with language. That's the exact words. All right. And for this, as you said before, the environment, the climate is very important. I cannot start a class saying, good morning, sit down, open your books. This was the way teachers used to start classes with me in my classroom. This has changed, but still we have these cases. Why? Because before starting, drama advises not to start a lesson without some warm-ups. And I use these warm-ups with my students, and they work perfectly well. Some breathing, some physical stretching, singing, whatever before starting, so I can connect doing and thinking. The brain is better prepared for the process of learning. We should remember that learning is a supreme act, and the students should be prepared for this process.
And Patricia, what about students who may be a little bit shy? How do you get them to open up and to feel confident enough to share with the activities that you're suggesting?
Well, of course that I have had shy students, but at the beginning they say, sorry, Patricia, but I won't be able to take part in this play because, I'm shy. Worry, you will. Don't worry. Take your time. And I always remember a girl, it was a young lady, a young girl, who said, no, sorry, but I won't. And I say, Don't worry, you will. And she um, took the role of a naughty girl in a play. It was a success. That play was a success. And she couldn't believe herself. It was really great. So, you see, well, drama is therapeutic. Many
Yeah.
people need some therapy, and specialists recommend drama, to have drama classes.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, they resist. But then when they start, they realize that it does good. It is important.
Yeah. It sounds also like in the case of that girl you were talking about, she learnt a lot more than just the language. She learnt things about herself that she felt perhaps she wasn't capable of until
Yeah.
she was in your class, which is always really interesting to see, isn't it? When some student sort of changes because of that. I think one of the things I quite like about language learning and teaching is that you see students adopt different personalities sometimes when they're learning a different language, don't they?
Yeah, it's true. But the thing is, as I said before, it's not when you are a teacher, you're not just teaching content. It's not just. I always say that the content is the vehicle, but there are more important aspects in the classroom that should be taken into account. For example, social relationships. I cannot start a class if I say, "Oh my God, I have this course again. It is Monday. I hate those students." No, something is happening. I need to find out the problem that is there. I need to speak with them. I need to give them to give them voice. Okay, let's have some reflection, right? Because it will be impossible to teach and to learn. So failure is present. So I should avoid
Mm.
that.
And did you, Patricia, have any role models, teachers that you had in school or afterwards that were important to you, that showed the kind of teaching that you have gone on to do? Or was it just a complete reaction against the teachers that you had?
Well, I had great teachers at college, really great. I always remember them. But of course, they were traditional. I understood the way they taught because that was the way that was present at the time. But of course, I have other role models that are changing education at the moment. And it is interesting when we get together and share, because we are like-minded. We share the same ideas, and we find um, different possibilities within the classroom. What can we do for this particular topic? In what way do you think the students can be directly involved? And I think that getting together is great. We shouldn't work individually. One of the characteristics of drama is cooperative work. Learning is a social process. This is something that is not understood, or is not taken into account by the traditional model. The students cannot learn individually, and you know that they remain seated at their desks listening to the teacher. Oh my God, no, they won't be able to learn properly. Students need to be connected. They need to work together, and the same happens with teachers. Teachers need to be connected, to work together, and in this way enrich one another. That's the new trend. That's the way of being effective in teaching and learning.
Yeah,
It
I
is a
suppose.
process. It's a
I s-
process.
yeah, of course, of course. I suppose with drama, it lends itself if you're looking at doing something like a little play or whatever, it lends itself for teachers to collaborate to actually put on a play with several different classes. In the way that in a lot of schools, plays are done collectively across classes, not just one class performing a play for another
Yeah.
class. That's something
Yeah.
I would imagine is good to encourage.
Yeah, yes, it's true. And for example, in many schools around the world, project-based learning is used with great success. It is one of the active methodologies. And for example, one way of finishing a project is a play. The students use the content or the contents they have learned, and then they represent that through a play. For example, suppose it is very funny this, but we have been talking about the cells we have in our bodies. So I say, okay, let's have a role play in which two cells are at a bar and they are having a conversation and they are talking about their functions in the human being. I'm a neuron, and you are um, a skin cell. Let's start a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And they are using what they have learned, but in a different way. It's not, okay, recite the lesson. It's not a question of reciting a lesson. It's to be involved. And they have a conversation like that. Okay, the neuron may say, oh, I'm important. I'm important because I'm in the brain. And the other says, well, yes, you are important, but I'm in the whole body. You are not. You are restricted to a part of the of the body. So the students may react in this way, and they have fun while they learn. It is not difficult to work like this, but
No.
what you need is to change your attitude, to change your approach. It's not repeating and something that is fixed, in which there is no change, always the same.
And it's all about what I really believe is important in that teaching and learning should all be about creating memorable experiences. I remember the things that made most of an impression on me when I was at school, for example, were things that the teacher did that were very out of the ordinary. I had a French teacher who was very innovative, for example, and I remember she did lots of role play. She approached her classes with a lot of humor. We watched sections of French films that were quite radical for the time when I was at school. And these were all memorable experiences that are important. I look back at that, and that's what I remember as being key moments in my educational life, at least.
Well, that's great, because it was not just reading a lesson and then repeating it like a parrot. So this is important. So great for that teacher. That was great.
Exactly. What about yourself? How did you get a sort of taste for language, for English in particular? Is it something that came naturally to you? Is it something that you were motivated to learn and to practice because of family or friends, or was it at school?
No, it was that one day I realized I was young, and my mother told me, okay, I had a brother, and he had studying English before me, 2 years before. And she told me, okay, now it is your time to start studying English. Yes, I said, okay. And I studied in the School of English. And when I came back home, my mother said, how did you like it? Oh, Mom, thank you. It was great. Well, I had an extraordinary teacher. And I started liking English because of that teacher, the way she taught. And she was traditional. She was traditional, but it was so sweet, so approachable, so supportive. I loved her immediately.
Yeah.
I always tell her about that.
Wonderful.
A role model. Yeah.
Exactly. The role models are so important, aren't they? To be a good role model, to approach your classes with a right kind of attitude, to want to be able to teach. It's so important to have that kind of teacher if you want learning to happen.
Yeah. So I think that it is vocation, inspiration.
Exactly.
You cannot teach if you haven't got vocation. If you decide to take up this career, it's because besides liking teaching, of course, it's vocation, determination, commitment. Because I always say you are not just an instructor, you are an educator. It's not just teaching contents. It's much more than that.
Oh yeah, as you mentioned, the effects that you can have on young people, beyond just the content that you're teaching, that you've given a few examples already, Patricia. But I think it's so important that you can positively or negatively affect the lives of if they're children in particular, but even young people, young adults who are under your supervision, who are under your care. Really, there's that kind of duty of care that extends itself beyond making sure they're safe and learning content, but making them almost into better people, aren't they?
Yeah, the thing is that again we go back to the system. The system tells them to pay attention to their grades because they are successful if they get good grades. And this is a big mistake because we never take into consideration their effort. So when they fail, we normally say, okay, try harder, or I will give you another opportunity. But we never ask, well, tell me, what is your problem? Why do you think that you have failed twice, for example? It is important to have a conversation with students. Sometimes I understand that we have crowded classes, and this is not um, possible practically. We cannot do this every class. But the thing is that we need to find the way because the students get frustrated, disappointed, and they tend to quit. And I always tell my students, you are my audience. Without you, I'm nothing. Okay, so let's share what your problems are. Let's talk together because if we understand each other, we will be able to improve. As I said before, your learning and my teaching. So I think that teaching and learning form a binomial. They are inseparable, and both of them should work perfectly well to be successful.
And what you said about this passing and failing goes back to the things you were talking earlier about testing and how it can be very damaging. As if only, if the students feel they're only being measured, if you like, on whether they pass or fail something, that can be very demotivating, can't it?
Of course, it is demotivating because I always say that a mark cannot decide your future or your fate. Let's analyze why you failed. So, learning by discovery, the students discover mistakes by themselves, and this is important. Okay, tell me, well, here you have committed this or that mistake. And remember that mistakes are common to many students. So, when I have a test and I discover that many students have failed, I know that I should devote a class to dealing with those mistakes because many of them are common. Okay, I can write something on the board. Okay, why do you think here there is an important mistake? So they start giving their opinions. Now I think that this is this. Okay, till they get the final answer. I think that it is a sort of discussion, a roundtable discussion that they need because in this way they learn to share, they learn to exchange different opinions, they share different strategies, different styles of learning. They learn a lot. So as I said before, the content is just the vehicle. There are many other aspects that are moving around the content that may help them become better learners, because this is the idea. We want them to be successful learners. So if they are not, what's the problem? Probably it is my problem because the strategies I'm using are not the right ones. So I need to check them and see what I can do.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Patricia, what about other types of educational change you think are necessary? So is it necessary, do you think, to change the kind of school system or the school itself? As there's a lot, not a lot has changed in most schools for many, many years, for example. They still look the same. I always remember there's a quote, I can't remember who it's from, but there's a quote that someone said that if a time traveler, went 100 years from the past to the present day, they would walk into a hospital and they would be amazed and they wouldn't really recognize most of what was happening in the hospital because of all the changes that had taken place, the technology, but not only the technology, just the way it looks and the way that people are treated and all sorts of things. And the same time traveler walked into a school, they would say, it's a school.
Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to remember the name of the person who said that, but I think it was quite interesting. I think there have been changes in some schools, but in most schools, they still look like they did 100 years ago to a certain extent, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, I know this story. Well, it's true. It's true. The thing is that many teachers may tend to say, well, I use technology. And by using technology, they understand that they are innovating. No, no. Technology is just a tool. And I always say that technology should adapt to the school. Not the students should not be adapted to technology. This is a big mistake. And I insist that technology is a passive tool, and students have been seated for ages listening to teachers. So technology invites them to sit and be in front of a screen. I tell teachers, okay, you can use technology because I use technology, but in my classroom, I prefer students moving all the time, doing different activities, experimenting with language. When I use technology, at the end, okay, suppose that they watch a film or they listen to a song. Okay, let's go to reality. Let's go back to reality. And now, how could you represent what you have seen or what you have heard in a drama scene, for example? We start thinking about this, and in this way, the period they remained seated is changed to something active, because the brain needs movement when the person is learning, when the student is learning. Without movement, learning does not take place. So neuroscience has given us lots of information that is important. And those schools that are changing take into consideration all the very valuable information that neuroscience has been giving us for a long time. For example, it has been scientifically tested that students do not learn by repeating like a parrot. They learn by doing. Another important information that should be taken into account is that today we know that the brain is flexible, that it can adapt to new learning. And another important information that we need to consider in the classroom is that two important emotions should always be present in the classroom: motivation and curiosity. If you don't want your classroom to be predictable, well, bring something that arises a student's curiosity. For example, before leaving the classroom, write an intriguing question on the board, or leave a strange object on your desk. As soon as you leave the classroom, the students are already curious because they want to know about that object, or they want to get information about the question on the board. So you see that simple ideas provide lots of activities. It is
Yes.
simple. It's a question of decision.
Yeah, I like this idea of making sure that you're in touch with changes and keeping up with things like, what we know about the brain and about learning and teaching, because it is changing all the time. And it goes back to what we said earlier, though, about teachers may not have time to keep up with all of that. But I think it's important for teachers to try and find time to be able to understand how to do that. I also wanted to pick up on something you said about technology, actually, because I'm a big fan of using technology in education. But I do understand, I think it's important to recognize that there's a kind of passive technology where, you're using technology that students aren't actually engaging with, other than just watching or listening to something, like listening to a song or watching something on a screen. But also there's a very active type of technology that can be used very actively, in particular with language learning, that I'm a big fan of. Is, for example, I've noticed if you record a student speaking, either audio or using video, and I would imagine this lends itself very well for drama as well, there's a kind of sense of importance to that moment that you can insist upon, or you can make present, so the students can often, if they're doing drama, for example, or saying something that is being recorded, they feel it's can often be made to feel that it's more important because it's being recorded, even if nothing much is being going to be done with the recording. But of course, you can do a lot more with the recording. Even if it's just if they listen to themselves or watch themselves, they can learn a lot from that. But I think that type of technology, video recorders, audio recorders, voice recorders, cameras, etc., I think can be used to great effect in education.
Yes, no doubt, of course, yes. And I use audio recording, for example, when they have to learn the lines of a script, or for
Yeah,
example, just reading, okay, listen to yourself. Did you like it? Did you like the way you read? And they may say, well, I think, and they are waiting for me to say something. It was good. And some others may say, no, I didn't like it. Why you didn't?
yeah,
And then
Bec-
they give their impressions, and I'm very interested in knowing their impressions, because in that way they can improve themselves.
yeah,
Then I give them
and
more feedback.
yes, and they could also become more self-aware of how they sound as well, can't they?
Yeah,
Because it's very unusual for us to actually listen to ourselves.
yeah,
And language learners, I think, have this impression of how their language level is, which is often based on not actually listening to the actual language they produce. So I think giving them opportunities to actually listen to themselves, or in the case of it's video, to watch themselves, um, can be very important, I think, for them to self-correct.
yeah.
Because you have a lot of students, I think, who think that they speak a lot worse than they actually speak, and vice versa. The students who feel that they speak very well, and then when they listen to themselves, they can be trained to spot their mistakes, etc., or things like that. And I think that can be a very important tool.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. No
No,
need to
no,
apologize.
no. Yes, no. Now I'm listening. Yeah,
Okay. So, Patricia, we've talked quite a lot about drama and making changes, and the need for teachers to move away from becoming traditional teachers towards embracing innovation, etc. I'd love to hear a lot more about, which I know you mentioned is uh, a very particular interest to you, is the phonology and
ah,
segmental and supra-segmental phonology. I
yeah,
would love it if you could explain the difference.
yeah.
What exactly is segmental and supra-segmental phonology, and why is it? What is it about it that you think is? Why is it important for you?
Well, segmental phonology refers to sounds, to the phonemes. And suprasegmental refers to what occurs beyond segments. That is to say, segmental phonology deals with the phonemes of a system. For example, the sound system of English, the sound
Mm-hmm.
system of
Yeah.
Spanish. And suprasegmental phonology deals with intonation, rhythm, accent, and highlighting. That is not normally taught. For example, at college, this is taught, of course, because it is a very important component in communication, but the emphasis is on the theoretical aspect, and the students receive little practice, so the information is, after they take the examination, the information is forgotten. When I speak about this with teachers, because normally teachers are interested in phonetics and phonology because they want to know the difference, because what the teachers need to know how pronunciation, how sounds can be taught in an integral way, because normally pronunciation hasn't got a specific place in language teaching. It is, it may be just a special session in one particular class, but pronunciation, that is, sounds should always be present. Another mistake that we are committing at the moment, because we are still having this traditional model, is that sounds are taught individually. So segments of phonemes are taught individually. And we know that we do not speak in individual sounds. Sounds are combined to produce words and phrases and sentences. So once the students know the system, they should use them in connected speech, because in connected speech, they discover that there are certain phonetic processes for receptive purposes, because there is no need to learn the processes that are taking place in connected speech. This may occur when students have more knowledge of the language. But there is a big difference when words are pronounced individually and the meaning they may convey, and when they are used in connected speech. And the suprasegmental phonology helps students discover the unsaid, what is not said. That is to say, the paralinguistic cues that are present that are very meaningful. Normally, when we speak, every word is accompanied with an emotional load. We cannot express without producing any gesture or body movement and without expressing any emotion. It is impossible. Otherwise, we would speak like a robot, and we are not robots. We are humans, and emotions are present
Fortunately.
everywhere. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Well, that's why I love to talk about this topic, because it is something that is set aside and it is not important. And today, English as an international language has become more flexible, and students need to know the meaning they can get from what is not said, because today it is the instrument of people around the world, and English is spoken with an accent. So the students should become used to listening to different accents. That's why both of them are important for the segmental and suprasegmental.
Very interesting. I'd love to hear more about your ideas of accent and how important that is, because I think it is something that can be something that students obsess about or that
No.
they don't worry about.
No.
But for me, it's kind of interesting because I think I've met language learners, for example, who are very concerned about their accent and they want to speak with a particular accent of the foreign language that they're learning. And then others who are quite the opposite and they find it very difficult to change their accent. Not that they perhaps need to change their accent so long as they're intelligible. Is that how you see it, or what kind of view do you have about accent?
What we need to know about accent, that accent is our linguistic passport. And it indicates our geographical and cultural background, and it cannot be eradicated. Usually you find courses on the net telling you that if you take up a course, you will be able to speak like a native speaker. This is a complete lie. You will never speak like a native speaker because you were not born in England.
It's
So
also not a real important goal, though, is it? I mean, why would someone, for example, born in Buenos Aires, want to speak like someone who was born in London? It kind of it shouldn't be a goal that they should have, surely.
But you mentioned those students who are interested in improving their pronunciation because they want to probably to be near to the pronunciation of native speakers. But the thing is that this is my accent. My accent is Spanish, but it's not the Spanish that is spoken, the English that is spoken in Spain. It is the one that is spoken in Argentina. But within Argentina, there are varieties. My English has the accent that is used in the River Plate area, that is to say, around Buenos Aires. So you see that there is a great variety of accents around the world, and in each country there are also more varieties. The thing is that when a student or a person wants to improve their pronunciation, their accent, they say that they want to improve it. That is impossible. What we can do is to improve their pronunciation. That's different. So
Exactly.
what we can do is to help them improve their pronunciation. And in this way, they will become more intelligible, more fluent. But accent is something that belongs to us. It cannot be
Yeah.
eradicated.
It's something about someone's identity as well, isn't it, really? I
Yeah.
think it's probably only interesting to change accents if you are an actor,
Well,
if the role
yeah.
requires it. But otherwise, I think it isn't something that should be something that we'd want to change, so long as you said, so long as intelligibility, which is more to do about pronunciation,
Yeah.
is a goal.
And experts say that you should be proud of your accent. And we shouldn't
Of
try
course.
to imitate others. And something very important with this international standard of English is that not only intelligibility is important today, not accuracy. Accuracy should be out, completely out. But comprehensibility is important, because today when I say, no, thank you, I don't want nothing, understanding takes place, comprehension takes place. As soon as I become more involved with people around the world using the language, I will be able to correct my mistakes. But the thing is that when I listen to people who commit mistakes when speaking. I can commit mistakes in
We
speaking,
all
but
can. I commit
yes,
mistakes. I've
of
spotted a
course,
couple that I've made during our conversation already that I thought, actually,
of
that
course,
isn't
we
right. I
commit.
think it's
Well,
normal.
it's normal. We commit mistakes in the mother tongue. Why not in a foreign one? But the thing is that we cannot be accurate either in our mother tongue. So it's impossible to be in one we are using to communicate around the world. So this is information that students need to know,
Hmm.
because students are told to be accurate. I think that it is a very big mistake, and at the same time, this type of big mistake helps them to become disappointed.
Hmm. I think it's in. I think whereas I tend to agree with you that I think fluency is definitely
Yeah.
more important. I think where accuracy is important is when, if you wouldn't want a student to be very fluent but not to be understood because of their mistakes. So I think
Mm.
there's a certain degree of accuracy that is needed, but it certainly shouldn't get in the way of fluency, I think, to a certain extent, because if someone isn't fluent in a language, then the people listening to them won't have the patience to continue listening. I think that's often the case.
Now you are saying this. Once a teacher, I was delivering a webinar, and one of her questions was, we were talking about this, that accuracy was not important. And she said, but I think that grammar is important. I teach my students grammar. Well, of course that we teach grammar, but the thing is that when they are using the language and they commit mistakes, we shouldn't make a fuss. The idea is that we can correct this mistake easily afterwards. Interruption should
Yeah.
not be present. Of course, that if we are teachers, we are teachers, we are teaching the grammar. But sometimes the students find it difficult to combine, for example, if clauses or tenses, they start with the present, they go on with the past, or they use present continuous. It takes time to learn a language.
Yeah. It's definitely important. Excuse me. It's important not to interrupt the students in the flow of the
Yeah,
conversation, because that can start to cause problems with fluency, can't it?
yeah, it's an obstacle.
All very interesting, Patricia. So, what do you think is going to happen as far as changes in education are concerned, either globally or in Argentina or in a more local aspect in the next year or so? Do you think there are going to be changes, or do you think it's going to continue to be difficult to implement innovation and change, as you were suggesting earlier?
Well, year after year, more people, more educators are interested in changing education.
So you're winning
Here,
the battle.
yeah. So I have hope. I'm hopeful.
Good, good, good.
Yeah, the idea is that it is a process, and it is a slow process, and of course that in many cases governments are not helping. But I'm hopeful here in Argentina because although we are a small group and all the difficulties we are having at the moment, we are trying hard to change. We are
Yeah.
trying hard to change, and we need to convince other teachers the importance of being different, changing their attitude, start using active methodologies. The thing is that this is also happening in other countries which are not having the problems we are having in Argentina, but they are so interested in changing education. They work so hard because I have been invited to different schools, and I can see how eager teachers are to discover changes, to revert the situation they are having at the moment, because they realize that this traditional model is not working any longer. So I always enjoy this type of enthusiasm. I'm a great enthusiast. I want education to change as soon as possible, but it takes time. It is a question, as I said before, of reflecting on making important decisions. But at the moment, if I can do something in the classroom, well, I'm glad. But then this is contagious because I tell this to you and you may start introducing some changes you haven't, and you can tell me something you are doing I have not tried yet. So you see, so transformation works like this: connecting, sharing, reflecting. So I'm so glad I'm part of this movement because I'm sure that sooner or later we will have a new type of education, because this movement of transformation is unstoppable. It's
Yes.
unstoppable.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to hear it. It sounds like you're confident that um, it's gradually moving in the right direction. That
Yeah,
innovative teaching is starting to happen, which is great.
yeah.
Excellent. I think it's probably the right moment to start winding things up,
Mhm.
Patricia.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this program. I've really enjoyed talking to you about this.
Me
Um,
too.
what kind of plans do you have for this year? I see that you meet regularly with other teachers to have discussions. I saw on your Instagram and
Yeah,
Facebook pages that there are a number of recordings that you have. Is that
yeah.
something you're going to continue with this year? And perhaps you could talk a little bit more about what that is. Is that the Ludo Drama Group, or
Drama.
is it something else?
Well, I'm doing many things at the moment, but we will go on with these roundtable discussions because they are really very useful. And the participants also say that they like the topics. So we try to find or to select those topics that are really hot at the moment. And the thing is that, as I said before, when we get together, we reflect, we learn, and we enrich ourselves. So this is the aim, to discuss together and to find new ways of learning, taking into consideration the education issues we're having at the moment.
And what are the hot topics, do you think? What are the topics that, towards the last few months, you've been discussing? And perhaps what do you think will come up again in the next couple of months?
For example, one of my favorite is, do you have students or learners in your classroom? uh,
Ah, that's
this is very,
interesting.
yeah,
And
okay.
and and what do you say to that?
Well, I have learners because I'm an innovative teacher. A teacher. Why? Because when you have students, this means that they do not have the opportunity to participate actively in the classroom. Students
Right.
belong to the traditional classroom. They are passive, they are receivers of information, and they do not have the chance to apply what they learn in real life situations. Today, we cannot accept new learning without being applied, because if it is not applied, it's not normally learned. If it is not applied, this means that the students are not directly involved in the process of learning. When you have a learner, you give the students the necessary tools, the strategies to become active participants. So if they are active participants, they not only are able to apply what they learn and reflect on what they have learned, but also they have the possibility of becoming autonomous, independent learners, because they can discover how they have learned, what adjustments are necessary. And this is great because we do not need to tell them what they need to do. They are capable enough to discover their own weaknesses or strengths. So mission accomplished. When students say something like that.
Yes, I like that. That idea of, someone can study, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're learning.
Of course.
They're studying, and we assume that learning comes about through studying. But if they're a learner, then that puts the emphasis on the actual learning, which is quite interesting. So I like that. What about other hot topics? You mentioned one. What other things have you been discussing recently?
For example, how much feedback do you give in the classroom? Feedback is something that is not present either. Feedback is crucial, but it's not common. Another important topic was metacognition. How often do you have metacognitive reflection with your colleagues and your students? This is practically not present. Metacognition is the tool to help them become autonomous, precisely. Another one, for example, smart classroom management. Normally we consider that classroom management are the rules that are given at the beginning of the year. Big mistake. We need smart classroom management, in which we include elements that are not usually taken into account, or they are taken for granted. For example, as I said before, the classroom climate, some warm-ups before starting, to improve social relationships. That is to say, to create rapport. This is very important. To know the needs of the students. These are also part of classroom management that are not usually taken into account. The students receive rules, instructions, routines, and this is also part that they need to know, because they can also give their own opinions. That's why giving voice and choice to students is very important, because you will always be I don't want to use the term authority, but you are the facilitator, and you will be able to choose the information or the opinions the students have given in order to use them in the classroom. And they feel important. You mentioned that students feel the need to feel important. Well, this is another way when they, my teacher paid attention to the piece of advice I gave her. How great. Well, this is important too, because we are working with human beings and there are emotions. And we need to have a very special relationship with them in order to be effective on both sides. The students feel happy if they are learning, and as a teacher, I feel happy if they are learning. So it's mutual. It's mutual.
Of course.
Aristotle once said, educating the mind with educating the heart is no education at all.
Yeah. And just to pick you up on the feedback aspect, that's something that is particularly interesting, I think, to me. I think it's very difficult to know what kind of feedback to give students, individual, group, and when, as you mentioned before, you don't want to interrupt students to give them feedback about their incorrect use of grammar. So there are other ways of doing it. What kind of things did you talk about when you had that discussion about feedback? And what conclusions did you come to about the best way of giving feedback and the type of feedback you need to give learners, not students?
Yeah, well, it should be productive, of course, but it may be individual, or it may be in groups. But we have to start dealing with feedback with the whole class, because students need to know what feedback is, the purpose of feedback. First of all, they need to know what it is. What's the function of feedback in the classroom? And when they discover feedback, this is closely connected to metacognition. When they discover feedback, they start reflecting. So they go hand in hand. When they start reflecting, they analyze their own learning. And when they analyze, they are learning, they try to improve it and to find what is necessary to make it better. So everything is connected in the classroom. So the thing is that you need to be an artist there and be able how to connect everything to give the students what they really need. Our main aim today is to give the students what they really need, because they have been complaining for ages, because they are saying that the type of education they are having is not nice. They do not like it. And they are studying to pass an examination. They are studying to pass an examination, not to learn. That's why they are students. Why? They are obliged to do that. The system is telling them, okay, if you do not study, you fail. You would have to do the course over or whatever. So the system is very rigid. It's not flexible at all. That's why the students become anxious, get disappointed. They need another atmosphere. At the moment, this atmosphere can be provided by the teacher because the system is doing nothing. Well, let's make the class a very beautiful place.
Yes, that's important. A place that the learners want to be in is important as well. That they don't feel that they don't want to come to class, I think is important. They need to feel happy about being there with their classmates and with the teacher, definitely.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. At the moment, many students, the thing is that at the beginning, secondary students didn't like a school. They considered it a prison. Then students, college or university students started complaining. And now students at primary school are complaining because I have listened to them. Because I visited schools normally, and they say
Right.
that they do not like it because the way they are taught, repetition, for example, they do not make them think. Another interesting topic was, a hot topic was, is critical thinking present in your classroom? How? Critical thinking is crucial because we are preparing students for the future. They are the future citizens of the world.
It's so important in the atmosphere today as well, with so much sort of opportunities to receive information online, for example, that you need to verify. You need to just not accept that something is true, or the fake news, etc. And becoming even more important with the ease and way that artificial intelligence, for example, can create now images and video and text that on the surface look like they're genuine and authentic, and perhaps they're not.
Yeah. That's why it's so important. They also need to know to be creative. So creativity and critical thinking go in hand together. One thing that I didn't mention, because you were talking about how schools can be creative, it can be updated. Is when in my opinion, I think that if they have the 5 C's of 21st century education, the 5 C's, that is communication, cooperation, creativity, critical thinking, and communication. They are the basic competencies students should know in order to become citizens of the world. So if teachers may start reflecting, okay, what kind of competencies are we using at the moment in my school? So it's simple. If one of them is missing, okay, start using communication. Is really very important today. We are globally connected. So students need to know how to communicate effectively,
of
creatively, critically. So as you see, there is connection everywhere in the classroom.
Yes, definitely. Well, Patricia, I'm going to draw things to a close now. I want to thank you very, very much for agreeing to participate and being my first guest of 2024. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And there's so much there that we've talked about that you could actually expand upon. So I think there's a lot of food for thought there. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for the invitation. It has been a pleasure for me to be with you. And it's always inspiring to find people or educators like you interested in changing the world. You are part of this movement too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patricia.
Okay.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and the rest of 2024 and beyond. Thank you very much.
Listening to you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. So thank you, everybody, for listening so far. You've reached the end of today's show, the first of 2024. And I really enjoyed talking to Patricia Lara Arbona from Argentina about her thoughts and ideas about educational change. I hope you did as well. Now, remember, there are lots of other Teachers Talk radio shows on all week, so I hope you will listen in live or listen to some of the recordings of some of my Teachers Talk radio colleagues and enjoy and learn from them. Until then, I would like to wish you a very good rest of the week, wherever you are.
Bet UK is just 2 weeks away. Are you ready to join 30,000 attendees, 600 plus exhibitors on 7 content stages from 120 countries and see Louis Theroux, Dame Darcy Bustle, Jason Arde, Laurel Kana, Baroness Floella Benjamin, Dan Fitzpatrick, Mr. PICT and so much more? I might need to bring my trainers. The best part? Educators go free! Get your ticket now at uk.betshow.com/visitor-registration.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
Introducing Eton X from Eton College, a diverse range of quality online courses enabling young people to aspire and excel. Designed for self-study, these web-based courses empower your students with essential leadership, communication, and academic skills for success at school and beyond. Our Study Skills course sharpens their learning abilities, while the AI Fundamentals course equips them with vital digital know-how in a fast-changing world. Other popular courses include verbal communication, critical thinking, writing skills, resilience, creative problem solving, and many more. Offer the Eton X curriculum in your school for free. Visit etonx.com to find out more.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.